At protests, guns are doing the talking. Armed Americans, often pushing a right-wing agenda, are increasingly using open carry laws to intimidate opponents and shut down debate. Across the country, openly carrying a gun in public is no longer just an exercise in self-defense. Increasingly, it is a soapbox for elevating one's voice and, just as often, quieting someone else's. This month, armed protesters appeared outside an election center in Phoenix, hurling baseless accusations that the election for governor had been stolen from the Republican, Kari Lake. In October, Proud Boys with Guns joined a rally in Nashville where conservative lawmakers spoke against transgender medical treatments for minors. In June, armed demonstrations around the United States amounted to nearly one a day. A group led by a former Republican state legislator protested a gay pride event in a public park in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Men with guns interrupted a Juneteenth festival in Franklin, Tennessee, handing out flyers claiming that white people were being replaced. Among the others were rallies in support of gun rights in Delaware and abortion rights in Georgia. Whether at the local library, in a park, or on Main Street, most of these incidents happen where Republicans have fought to expand the ability to bear arms in public, a movement bolstered by a recent Supreme Court ruling on the right to carry firearms outside the home. The loosening of limits has occurred as violent political rhetoric rises and the police in some places fear bloodshed among an armed populace on a hair trigger. But the effects of more guns in public spaces have not been evenly felt. A partisan divide, with Democrats largely eschewing firearms and Republicans embracing them, has warped civic discourse. Deploying the Second Amendment in service of the First has become a way to buttress a policy argument, a sort of silent, if intimidating, bullhorn. "It's disappointing we've gotten to that state in our country," said Kevin Thompson, executive director of the Museum of Science and History in Memphis, Tennessee, where armed protesters led to the cancellation of an LGBTQ event in September. "What I saw was a group of folks who did not want to engage in any sort of dialogue and just wanted to impose their belief."
Gun violence in the United States has been making news recently. A series of shootings in schools, subways, other public places. It has raised questions about gun laws in the United States. In the latest, thousands of people took to the streets on Saturday to demand for action on the devastating gun violence plaguing the country. The protesters demand stricter gun laws and protection for citizens. In Washington, protesters of all ages gathered at the National Mall where activists placed white vases holding flowers. Apart from Washington, protests took place in Florida, where a student-led organization founded by survivors of a shooting at a high school in Parkland, Florida, held demonstrations. The same organization has conducted rallies in 2018 to protest against gun violence. Other protesters in Parkland carried placards and signs with messages such as "Am I next?" Protests were also marked in New York City.
Can I count for you? There are too many people who have lived this gun experience.
We can't go to school without worry about gun violence, and just to mass shootings, how much it's increased all over the years. I think it's kind of plain ridiculous how there's more shootings than days of the year. So just came here to show our support and try to help make a difference.
According to the Gun Violence Archive, more